You're listening to the Men's Dating Mastery Podcast with host Alec Chase, bringing you the experts in dating, sex, and relationships.
Hello, guys, and welcome to episode 22 of the MDM podcast. Based on some of your feedback, I recently renewed my commitment to keeping these episodes to no more than 45 minutes. However, every once in a while, when I have an opportunity to provide you with additional value, an exception is warranted. This episode is one such exception. My guest today is dating coach, author, and Tinder expert Kristi Allain. Our conversation is a very comprehensive, detailed, and specific guide to help you get the most out of Tinder. Everything that we cover is actionable, so there's absolutely no fluff or theoretical musings in this episode. We talk about pics, bios, how to initiate, hold, and transition a conversation from Tinder to a date, specific situations that may arise on Tinder and how to handle them, the best days and times to be on Tinder, how to tell if a girl really looks like her pictures. We get into the mind of a woman by talking about the Tinder experience from a girl's perspective. We talk about various app features and other hacks that you may not know about and that can help you get more out of Tinder, and much, much more. This is a really comprehensive interview. Hope you enjoy it. On a separate note, if you have been keeping up with the podcast, then you already know that one of my guests, Frank Kermit, has been kind enough to give away 3 of his products for free to you, the listeners of MDM. These products are an ebook called The Emotional Needs of Women, a 3-set audio program called The Art of Charisma, from Creepy to Charisma, and another 5-set audio program called Pimpin' Your Pad. These are serious, in-depth products that normally go for $270. Frank was generous enough to give them away for free in order to encourage you to keep listening to the show. To get them, all you need to do is go to the show notes for episode 14, called Using Body Language to Create Attraction with Patty Contenta, or episodes 15 and 16, which are parts 1 and 2 of my interview with Frank Kermit called The 10 Emotional Needs of Women. You can find all 3 of these pages by going to the podcast page on mensdatingmastery.com and scrolling through the list. Once you're there, just click on the link under the title Free Giveaway at the top of any of the 3 pages to get the downloads. Like I said, these products represent $270 in value, which is why they will be available only until September 16th of 2015. After that, the only way to get them will be to buy them just like everybody else. So get them while they are still free. Now on to the interview. Hey, Kristi, welcome.
Hey, thanks.
You know what? This is a conversation I've been looking forward to for a long time. Long time ago, when I first put up my website, I wrote a blog post talking about how I dislike online dating and giving the 5 reasons why I quit it, which is true. And so I'm very happy I get to talk to you about this today because I think there's going to be a lot of learning for me as well. And of course, with Tinder being all the rage these days, I succumbed to it as well. As much as I did quit online dating, Tinder is just too convenient. So I'm super excited about this conversation. To kick us off, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, so the audience can get to know you better?
Yeah, absolutely. I am a dating coach, and also I wrote a best-selling book on Amazon called Nailed It, and it's basically the ultimate first date toolbox for men, all about first dates from the woman's perspective. I'm also a blogger for my site, kristiallain.com, and full of dating advice for men and women. And I've written for sites like Ask Men, Examiner, Bustle. And then in addition to that, I also am an official wing woman for something called the Tinder Society, which is basically just a Facebook group that it's kind of a paid subscription site where guys go in and they ask for feedback on their Tinder profiles and on talking to girls, and I just kind of help out with that.
Awesome. That sounds like a really cool community that's set up on Facebook. So let's start with a question that almost everybody wonders, at least I think they do. So Tinder started out as a hookup app. That was how it was used. That's how it was perceived. I think it's generally understood that it's evolved past that it's more than just for hookups. And I'm wondering, as far as women are concerned specifically, How many of them do you believe are on there just for a fling versus something a little bit long term?
Right. Yeah, that's a hard one because the definition of a hookup kind of varies from person to person, first of all. It could be anything from making out to sleeping together on the first night and never talking again. Or it could be hooking up and then ended up like dating someone. So I think kind of in this day and age, most women who are on there, they're either looking for new experiences with men, and they kind of don't have expectations, or they're kind of looking for a relationship. But a lot of times they're not just looking for a one night stand with someone, and there are exceptions to the rule, but most women are looking for a connection. And so, while some women will hook up, and depending on the chemistry, I think that, women will do anything in the moment, but it's not necessarily why they're on there specifically for that.
Okay, so you're saying for the most part, sure, the unexpected might happen, and maybe someone you meet on Tinder might turn out to a one night stand or what have you, but the intent for the most part is to have something ongoing, if not a committed long-term relationship, then at least dating.
Right. I mean, there are the girls that will just say, come over and they'll hook up with you, but they want you to call them again. And you know what I'm saying? So I think for men, it's a little bit different than for women.
Okay. So let's go through this in a logical order. Let's talk about profiles. And I get the sense that with Tinder, it's really all about the pictures. I mean, there's so many profiles out there without even a description, but some great pictures. Would you agree with that when it comes to Tinder, it's really primarily about the pictures if you want to have an effective profile?
Yes, absolutely. The pictures are number one. But I will say that men are way more visual than women are. So don't forget that women, we pay attention to every detail. So while we are looking primarily at the pictures, if we think you're cute, we're going to read the bio too. And if there's something in the bio that we don't like, we could still swipe left.
Okay, cool. So we'll get into the bio, but let's really dissect this whole picture stuff because this is something that guys notoriously suck at for the most part. Guys are really, really bad at selecting good pictures that women would be attracted to. So can you lead us through what good pictures would be on Tinder? Then, I mean, really get into the details, what kind of facial expressions, background, sequence, what should be your leading picture versus the stuff that you put in the background. I mean, let's get through all of it.
Sure, of course. I'm laughing because I don't think any guy really knows what pictures of them are good. It's so funny. Every guy whose profile I look at, I'm just like, that is not a good picture. And that's your first one. Wow. It's like very rare, I think. So what I want to say, first of all, the most important thing is to get feedback from someone else besides yourself. Whether that's a friend and not another guy friend, maybe ask a girlfriend or a professional or some kind of site like Tinder Society, just to have, a second opinion. And then just to get into it, the first picture should be your best picture, obviously. It should be of your face, I think waist up or even closer than that. And you know what your best features are. If you have a great smile, then go ahead and smile in your picture. If you're like good looking without a smile, you don't need to smile in it. But the first one should just be like your basic, just showing off exactly what you look like. Don't make it a group photo or anything like that. And then as far as the other pictures, you kind of want to show a full variety of who you are in a way. So, you definitely want a full body picture in maybe the second picture. Maybe a picture where you're dressed up to show off that, you know how to clean up well. A picture with some friends. Have your friends be well dressed and kind of like in a setting that looks like you're not at the club or something, Some guys have like all clubbing pictures and you're like, really? It's like that club picture where they have a hot girl on either side of them. And
yeah. So like the really cheesy stuff.
Oh my God. But yeah. And then I think outdoors pictures are always nice. Something that shows off a passion or hobby or shows that you're athletic. And yeah, just, I guess you don't want to obviously include bathroom selfies. Everyone knows that. You don't want to include pictures with tigers. Everyone knows that.
Okay. Actually, I didn't know that you shouldn't include pictures of tigers, although I have seen a plethora of them on Tinder.
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, that's a no-no because it's just so cliche at this point. I guess the first week or two that it was happening, it was kind of interesting. But now we're just like, not another one. Left swipe.
Right.
And then, you don't want to include pictures with another girl. Maybe that might be your girlfriend. If we're not sure, we're just like, no. You want your pictures to be high resolution, not grainy.
Okay, actually, hold on a sec. Before you continue, I want to ask you about the picture with girls in it. So would you suggest just steering clear of having pictures with women in them altogether? Or are you suggesting just avoid the ones where the girl that you're with looks like she could potentially be a girlfriend?
Well, I think it all depends. First of all, like it depends on your body language with that girl. If it's obvious that it's a friend, like let's say it's you and a guy and a girl and you're all, hanging out. It's different than if it's just you and a girl and you're whispering something in her ear and she's laughing. You know what I mean? Like,
Gotcha.
So pay attention to that. I would say if you have a really great picture of yourself and there's happens to be a girl in it, don't let that keep you from using the picture. But just do one of them. You don't want to have girls in all your pictures or in multiple pictures.
Okay, great. So, and I cut you off there. You were moving on to, I think, resolution.
Oh, yeah. No, I was talking about things that you don't want to have in your pictures. Group shots are obviously not great if they have to hunt out, figure out which one you are, especially in the first couple photos. So, and you also don't want to hide your face. So a lot of guys will wear sunglasses in almost all of their pictures, or they'll have a hat, or, something's blocking their face. And that just screams out, you have something to hide. And women tend to not trust guys that don't either show their face or guys that don't have a lot of pictures of themselves.
Interesting. And out of everything you said, the thing that stood out to me, and I imagine it's probably pretty important, is variety. So you described outdoors, pictures where you're active, pictures with groups of friends, pictures where you're well dressed. So to me, that says variety shows multiple facets of your life and personality. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, it shows how you would fit into her life, because that's kind of what women do when they see a guy is like, would I bring him around my friends? Would he make me look good? So, and also women pay attention to, the setting, what's behind you, what kind of places you hang out. And also this is going to give them, the more pictures you show with these different hobbies, it'll give them something to talk to you about. It'll give more room for conversation.
So you actually already suggested one thing, ask a female opinion on your pictures. But specifically, once you're already on Tinder and you've got a whole bunch of pictures, what's a good, logical way to test out which ones are getting you the best results?
The easiest way to do it is to just change the order of your pictures or swap out your pictures and then do the same amount of swipes every day. And just tally out how many matches you get.
Okay, so a nice, very mathematical approach. I like that.
Yeah, that's what I do when I test out opening lines and pictures and stuff. So it works well.
Perfect. And is there anything else you would advise with respect to pictures before we move on? I want to make sure that we really get this one nailed because I think it's really important.
Yeah, I just think that if you don't have any good pictures of yourself, a lot of guys are kind of scared to take a lot of time in getting pictures of themselves. They're kind of in front of their guy friends. They might not want to upload a new picture of themselves on Facebook because everyone will know it's for Tinder, or they might just not like the attention on themselves, asking people to take pictures of them. So guys will just have really bad pictures of themselves. They won't really have a good selection. So I would recommend, if you're out, let's say you're taking a hike, just ask a stranger to snap pictures of you and get as many pictures as you possibly can, because that's how you're going to get, a better picture, and better pictures equal more matches, more dates, more hookups, whatever you want.
Right. I'm glad you said that. And I think you hit the nail on the head. As guys, part of it is we don't know which pictures we should choose, but the real problem is we don't even have that many pictures of us to begin with. I know I'm like that. I don't really get my picture taken very much. I come back from vacations with one picture of the landscape and that's it. Right. So yeah, as dudes, I think a lot of us are notorious for that.
Right. Women are just constantly taking pictures of ourselves, so we know exactly what to do. But men, yeah, I've had to, some of my guy friends, even at work, we'll go into a different room and I'll force them to take more pictures of themselves in the office just because they're it's just so bad, their selection.
So we've covered pictures. Let's talk about bios. So with Tinder, it's kind of funny because So many profiles don't even have a bio. Some of them are literally one liner. Actually, most of them are one liner if there's one at all. So what would you suggest? What's a good bio? Do you even need one on Tinder? Can you get away without one?
I do not think that you should try to get away without one. You might get some matches, but it's a red flag to a lot of women. You want to have something there. It doesn't have to be long. It can be a one-liner, but just don't leave it completely blank.
Okay. And so what's a good bio?
I think a good bio, basically, if you can ask a question, that's always a really good one. Just something that shows off your personality and something that shows you're interesting. I suggest that people use these challenge questions a lot. So like smooth or crunchy peanut butter, or, just some kind of a question, favorite animated movie or something like that. Something I've heard, but, you ask a question that people can answer when you're actually conversating, or you can, just talk about yourself. I mean, it's kind of basic, but just talk about what you like, what you don't like. Not what you don't like, sorry. Talk about what you like, what your hobbies are, your interests, where you're from, things like that, to start conversation.
Okay. And I want to just mention something real quick. You actually just corrected yourself and you said, don't talk about something you don't like, which I find interesting because to me, what I hear is avoid negativity. So if you're talking about likes, talk about things you do like and keep the overall vibe positive. Is that what's behind that statement?
Absolutely. Yeah. And also you don't want to talk about what you don't want in a woman, because any type of judgment in your profile is going to scare women away, even if they don't quite fit that. So let's say you're like, no fatties. Even if a woman isn't fat, she's going to think you're a jerk.
Actually, tell me, this just popped into my head, but what would you think of a profile like this where it's just the entire profile is dedicated to describing the positive qualities of an ideal woman that guy would like to match with? How do you think that would be received?
I wouldn't go too far into the describing to where it sounds like this long list of must-haves, because it's going to disqualify a lot of women, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So there's one thing in there that a woman doesn't identify with. She's going to just swipe left because she doesn't match all of your criteria. But I think it's okay if you have something, one or two things that are positive, like must love pizza and action movies or something like that. That's not really going to scare a woman away. They're going to think, oh, cool, I could probably like that. Like, even if I don't, I'm into that,
Okay. So what I'm hearing is this whole bio writing thing is not complicated. Keep it short and sweet. You can either have a one-liner that's lighthearted and funny and maybe a little goofy to spark a conversation, or you could just have something a little bit more standard, but keep it short and keep it on a positive note.
Exactly.
Great. And here's another thing. This is kind of related to bios. I've actually have a few friends that they'll start talking to a woman on Tinder and then they'll move that conversation to Facebook. So they'll add them to Facebook and they'll go from there. And I've actually heard one particular coach suggest this, and that is creating a Facebook profile that is intentionally tailored to essentially build further attraction with your matches once they are your Facebook friends. What do you have to say about that? Is that a good idea? Is it a waste of time?
Well, are you talking about setting up like a completely separate Facebook, or are you talking about editing your own Facebook so that it's attractive?
Editing your own Facebook just so that it's attractive.
Right. Well, I think you want to do that anyway. So basically, if you have a fun life and, you're doing enjoyable activities all the time, that stuff is going to show on your profile. And I think that's great. If you're going to use Facebook to talk to women, you should absolutely set it up so that it's geared towards building attraction.
Okay.
So have great photos on your Facebook. Take off all those really bad photos that people tagged you in. Because women will look back to 8th grade and stalk you. So
no way.
Yes. If they think you're that cute and they're excited about it, they will do that. So just make sure, if Facebook is a place where you have girls constantly like commenting on your pictures and stuff, maybe don't use Facebook. Because women might see all of that and be like, oh, he's just a player. He's dating all these girls from Tinder. Because a lot of times your Tinder matches, if they're friends with you on Facebook, they're going to like and comment on all your pictures and say, oh, hottie, like blah, blah, blah. And that just kind of shows us that you're dating all these girls.
Oh, really? You think so? I'm actually taken a little bit by surprise just because maybe it translates a little bit differently online, but I find in real life, the more attention a guy gets from women, the more attention he gets from other women who are observing him getting attention from women, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that in real life. The thing is with Tinder is that it's a whole different world. And so if a girl realizes that you moved her directly from Tinder to Facebook, she's going to assume that you do that with all the girls that you meet.
So in this case, she might think she's just another pawn in your overall scheme, and it might seem a little fishy, you're saying.
Yes, absolutely.
Ah, okay. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so let's talk about actually communicating on Tinder. How do you initiate a conversation? What's a good way to get one started?
Well, first of all, I just want to point out that a lot of men do not message first, which is kind of shocking, you would think, because guys are all about getting as many matches as possible. But I've gone through a lot of my attractive friends' accounts, and I did my own experimentation on it. And maybe about 20 to 30% of guys will message first. So I guess the first thing I want to say is you should just definitely initiate conversation with all of your matches. If you don't think they're hot, unmatch them. But if you're going to have them in there, why let them go to waste? So I just want to say that first.
Okay.
Because once time passes, it's really hard to initiate the conversation again. So
hold on a sec. That's actually interesting what you just said. So are you suggesting that it's hard to start a conversation and pick it up again further down the road? Or are you saying it's just plain harder to even initiate a conversation if you matched a week ago and you haven't said anything up until that moment?
It's initiating and then waiting a week. That's the hard part. And there's a way around it, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But basically, it kind of shows that to the girl that she wasn't first choice, if that makes any sense. So like if you wait a week, it's obvious that you were talking to other girls and then now you don't have any girls to talk to. So you came back to her.
You know what, I imagine in most cases, that's probably exactly the reason too.
Right. So, I mean, you probably won't get as much of a response if there's that long of a gap. And plus the girls have new matches and they're not really worried about old news. You're already old news.
Okay. So we're taking that tip with us. We initiate right away. What's a good way to initiate?
So again, the challenge questions work really well. And those are just questions like, if you could go to the past or the future on a time machine, like which one would you go to? Or just any kind of question that calls for a short, quick, fun answer that the person's going to enjoy answering. Those always work super well. And then you can kind of play off of that. So I always use the example, if you ask smooth or crunchy peanut butter, I like to start it out and say, I have a really important question for you, smooth or crunchy peanut butter. And then, let's say they say smooth, and then you can be like, oh, bummer, it's never going to work between us. Or you could be like, okay, you've passed my test. What's your name? Or something like that. Well, you know their name, and if they don't respond, it's easy because then you can kind of play off of that. Like maybe you can say, oh, well, I take it you're allergic to peanuts or something like that to kind of keep the conversation, or it'll give you another chance to bounce back.
So that's good. That leads me into my second question. And that is, I've tried it both ways. And I find that if a girl doesn't reply to your first text message, even if she does reply to a second one, that conversation rarely goes anywhere. So I message once, and then if I don't get anything back, I just cut my loss and move on. What do you have to say about that?
Right. I mean, it depends. I would usually say cut your losses and just move on. But then sometimes it's, the girl's busy or she just missed your message. And so I have another way that I'll talk about, which is moments, which is a good way to get the conversation going again. But I think it's okay to send a second message if she's really hot and you really want to go out with her. Just don't say the same thing over again. So I have this one guy recently who, because I've been testing things out, and he was like, "Hi, how's your day going? How's your night? How's your weekend?" And I'm just like, really? If I didn't answer it the first time, why am I going to answer the same question? So I think that it's important to kind of mix it up and change your approach. And also don't ever be negative about the fact that she didn't respond, because she'll never talk to you ever. She'll unmatch you.
Right. Then you just sound like you're angry.
Yeah, you sound bitter. So don't do that.
Okay. And so you were talking about starting out with something like smooth or crunchy peanut butter, something fun and lighthearted. And would the whole conversation ideally be like that? Or do you change waves and get a little bit more serious, get into a conversation about what you do, or do you just keep it kind of light, fun, playful banter the whole time?
Right. It's definitely great to keep it playful and fun as much as you can. Another suggestion for a first message to initiate the conversation I was going to suggest is commenting on something on her profile, or complimenting something, maybe not necessarily her looks, but something in one of her pictures, or asking about something. So that can kind of take the conversation in a direction of her talking about herself and opening up to you about herself, which is good. I think questions like, what are your favorite spots around the city, or your favorite things to do in the city, things like that, where you're talking about something that you enjoy. Just really try to avoid anything negative, or too serious, obviously politics, ex-girlfriends, or other dates that you guys have been on. Just try to not bring that kind of stuff up at all.
Yeah, shitty days at the office.
Yeah. You don't want to vent at all. It's just a bad, foot to start on. And then another thing that really drives women crazy is the boring questions that require a lot of work to answer. And they're not really that hard of questions. Like if you're asking, how was your weekend? It's not that hard to answer, but after like 10 guys just asked you that question in a row.
Yeah, it becomes tedious.
Yeah, you don't feel like answering it anymore. It's just not fun. So just keep that in mind when you ask a question, that like make it something that she actually will enjoy answering.
And how would you recommend a guy converse with a girl that he's in a conversation with on Tinder, depending on what his goals are? So everything you've described, I think that would be very conducive if the guy's looking, for somebody who he could potentially date. But what if he's looking for, say, a one-night stand? Would it still be very similar kind of dialogue, or would he change it somehow?
I think that in the beginning that it should be the exact same approach, regardless, because it's always creepy to a girl if a guy's talking about hooking up right in the beginning of the conversation. So, you kind of want to get to know each other a little bit and just approach it in the exact same way in the beginning. But then I do think before going out with her, you should make it clear that you're not looking for anything serious at the very least. I mean, you don't have to say like, oh, I'm going to have sex with you and never call you again. But you can say something like, I'm just having fun on the app. Like, I'm just like enjoying my single time and having fun, riding the wave of being single. But it'd be great to meet up with you and have some fun, or something like that.
Okay, cool. And actually, right along the same lines, how would you respond when a girl asks you what you want? I've actually gotten this question quite frequently. Point blank, what are you looking for? How do you answer that question? Do you just very blatantly say specifically what you're looking for? Do you give a more vague, general answer? And I'll qualify that question a little bit further. So for example, for me, I'm kind of open to whatever. If it's a short-term thing, great. If the girl's got more to offer, then I will take that too. For me, it depends. And I imagine I'm not the only one that's like that. And so how do you answer that question? Do you answer it exactly the way I just said it, or is there a better way?
Yeah, I think usually when people ask that question, they're looking to just kind of weed out the people who aren't in that general mindset. Because I think most people are in the mindset of, I'm on here to have fun, meet new people, and if there's more, then there's more, but if not, no expectations, right? And that's just basically what you want to say in a nutshell, unless you are extreme on either end. So unless you're like, I'm looking for something serious. If you're really serious about finding something serious and you only want to find people who are the same, then I think just be honest and straightforward. If you're really just on there to have fun and not looking for anything serious, say that. But I think the important thing is just, if you're in that middle category, you don't have to get too into it. Like, you don't have to go into too much detail. Just say, I'm here to have fun and see what happens, and blah, blah, blah. And that'll usually shut the person up.
And how do you deal with one-word answers? So I'll give you an example. So say you ask a question like you suggested, smooth or crunchy peanut butter, and she goes, smooth. And then you have some witty comeback and she goes, LOL. And then you say something else and she says, yes. Right? How do you deal with the conversation that's like that? She's responding to everything you're saying, but it's kind of like one-word answers, two-word answers. The conversation is just very one-sided. Should a guy even stay in a conversation like that, or is there a way to resuscitate it?
I mean, I think that she's showing that she's not that interested if she's only giving you one word answers. So maybe she's still keeping it going because, she's busy. But in kind of a way, she's giving you a hint that she's not that interested. And so usually I would say just chalk it up and talk to the girls who are talking to you. She might just be busy. So you could just give her some space and then try bringing it back, in a couple days. Like maybe she's going through something crazy.
Right.
But you don't want to over communicate. You don't want to like send message after message when she's just giving you one word answers. You kind of want to mirror how she's acting with you. So if she's giving you one word answers, you don't want to like go into another paragraph,
And just really from a woman's perspective, do you have any ideas as to why a woman might do that? So if she's not really that interested, why respond or talk at all? Like she just kind of wants to be polite and doesn't want to be rude, and that's her way of dealing with it, or is she maybe just keeping you in her back pocket in case it doesn't work out with the other guy she's talking to, or is it something different altogether?
Yeah, I think she's probably just keeping you in her back pocket. Like usually on Tinder, most women will have a lot of matches at once, and she could be talking to them all now, but she doesn't want you to think she forgot about you, but she's probably having conversations with other people, or she's just busy. So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why, but I would say if she doesn't eventually apologize and say, sorry, I was in the middle of something, and like change her tune, she's probably just not that interested, or she has other people she's more interested in.
So you've given us a lot of really good advice on how to have a conversation. How long should that conversation last before a guy gets a number or moves things to the next level, whether it's a number or a date or Facebook? How long should that conversation be?
Right. I mean, I always suggest within a couple exchanges or at least, back and forth, like maybe 3 times, 4 times, and then try to move it to a date, because you definitely want to do it in the same day. You don't want to wait till the next day. So, I mean, the whole point of Tinder is to set up dates, and you just kind of want to get that out of the way. I don't think that it should be meant for long conversations. And, most women don't want to make small talk on Tinder all day.
And is it good to just set up a date right away, or do you get the number, give her a call, have a conversation, let her hear that you're a pretty normal guy, you get to hear that she's a pretty normal girl, and then set up the date? Or do you think it's better to just go straight for the close, set up the date, and see them in person?
That's interesting. I think the phone call can be a good idea, and I've had experience with that, but it also adds an extra step in between the date. So something weird happens on the phone call, then the date might not happen. And so it just kind of depends. Sometimes it depends on if you're really good on the phone or if you're not good on the phone. If you don't have much to say on the phone, then she's going to think you're boring. So I guess it's up to you whether you want to do the phone call or not.
Okay. So it sounds like you're adding another layer of bureaucracy in most cases with the phone call.
Yeah, basically you are. And I mean, it takes enough time the date doesn't have to be that long. You know what I mean? It can just be an hour date. So, yeah.
Sometimes girls will be super engaged in a conversation. And then when you want to move things to the next level, whether it's give her a call or go out with her, it's just kind of like a no. How do you make sense of that? How could a person be like super, super engaged, have a lot to say, but then not want to move off Tinder?
Right. Well, I think a lot of it, I mean, some girls might just be on Tinder kind of checking it out, not really ready to start dating yet on the app. But it's also in the way that you ask the question. So if you are like, would you like to go out with me? Or can I get your phone number? Those kind of questions make it really easy for her to say no.
Right.
Because you're asking a yes or no question. So try to always avoid yes or no questions. Say, let's grab a drink. Are you free Friday or maybe Wednesday? Something that kind of.
So something a little bit more assertive where you're assuming yes rather than asking for permission.
Exactly. And also don't ask for her phone number. Drop your number in. So just throw your number down and say, here's my number. This will be much easier or whatever. Do it at a moment when the conversation's going well and you've built a little bit of rapport with her, and then drop your phone number. And I've also heard people say, actually my boyfriend, Blake, he wrote a book on, it's called Tinder Hacks. And the thing that he always uses is he puts his number in and then he goes, feel free to use it, but if not, no hard feelings. So kind of showing that it's no big deal if the person doesn't call you. Yeah, by the way, we're not both actively looking on Tinder, but we just kind of test things out.
Gotcha. It's research purposes only.
Exactly.
That comes to me as a bit of a surprise because comparing this to how a real life interaction might go, and normally I would expect that a girl would be a lot more receptive if you say, give me your number, type it in here versus here's my number, because you're essentially giving the initiative to her to connect with you by phone. And so To me, it's almost a little counterintuitive. Why do you think that works on Tinder, but maybe not the best approach in real life?
In person, it's a little bit different because you're handing your phone over to the girl in person and saying, here, put your number in and I'll text you. And usually right after that, you'll text her. And so you'll have each other's numbers. But in this way, it kind of keeps her from saying no or just disappearing because she has your number and she drops it down. And what most girls will do is they're going to come back and say, awesome, here's my number too, and put it back in your court. Or they'll just text you because their phone is already in their hand. So it's a little bit different than the whole get my number and call me thing. It's like within a click of a button, she could text you and say hi, and then you can take it from there and resume taking the lead.
Right. Gotcha. And a little earlier in the conversation, you mentioned moments. Let's talk a little bit about that, because when I first started using Tinder, I completely misunderstood what that was or how it worked or what the purpose was. So can you just describe what it is and why a guy might use it?
Yeah, Moments is the best feature of Tinder. It basically allows you to take photos from your phone and send them, blast them out to all of your matches. So the only people who can see your photo are your matches, no one else. And it kind of pops up on their screen. So they go to open the app and they go to look at their messages, and it'll show them that they have, 9 new moments. And it works the same way. They swipe right or left, right if they like the moment and left if they don't. But you're down at the bottom, your face. So your moment is big and your face is down at the bottom. So the emphasis isn't on you, but on the actual moment. So the girl is really just liking the picture. She's not really saying whether or not she likes you specifically.
I don't know if everybody was confused the way I was, but when I started getting on Tinder and I started getting a whole bunch of moments, I thought those pictures were intended just for me. And so I would normally reply to a moment with a comment, and then it would just puzzle me to the nth degree. I'm like, why are all these women sending me a whole bunch of pictures, but when I comment on the pictures, they just send me more pictures? Made no sense to me. So
that is so funny.
And I did it for the longest time and I think I actually heard Blake as well on some other podcast, and he explained what they were to me. I'm like, oh, now I get it.
That's hilarious. Yeah, they're the best. And so basically you could use you can just do selfies. And if you're going to do selfies, don't do a ton of them. Use them sparingly and put a funny caption or, take a selfie of yourself in an interesting location or, doing something silly. Or you can use different quote images or memes or things that are going to make the girl laugh, or different landscapes or beautiful things that you come across in your day, or pretty much anything you want. You're just kind of showing them your personality. And it's a good way to initiate conversation. And a lot of girls will comment. And that's a great way to kind of re-spark something that dropped off.
Okay, cool. So if the conversation fizzled and then you post a moment, girl likes your picture, well, now you have a good reason to re-engage.
Right. And you can hit her up and just be like, oh, we just had a moment there or something, just say something clever to start the conversation. Kind of acknowledge that she liked your moment, and she'll be put on the spot because, she did like your moment. So she has to kind of talk to you now because she initiated it.
And are there any good days during the week or hours during the day to be on Tinder? And there's a very specific reason why I say this. There's this notion among dating coaches. They've got this theory that, say you meet a woman out at a bar or at a club or wherever, the best time to text her is on a Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, because that's usually when people are kind of winding down. The weekend's over. They're getting ready for work. Sometimes they're kind of depressed that they have to go back to work. Maybe she met a whole bunch of jerks over the weekend and she's kind of disgruntled about that. And so based on all of those reasons, Sunday evening is generally considered to be a really, really good time to text a girl because that's when she'll be most engaged and available. Is there anything like that with Tinder?
Right. I mean, I think the same exact thing applies. Sunday evenings are great. Sundays in general, because it's kind of a chill day. Most people kind of look at that as a day of rest in a way, and also a day to kind of plan your week out. So I totally agree with all the other dating coaches that Sunday is a perfect time to message and to be on Tinder. But I think all the days are good. I think Monday and Tuesday are a little slow. Specifically Monday, that's probably the worst day because everybody's just getting back into their week, answering all their emails, and
total work mode.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. And I think that weekends are always great because you'll catch all the people who don't have plans, because people tend to like book their weeks up or chill and like hang out. But on the weekends, if they don't have plans, they're looking on Tinder, So I think that's a good opportunity if you set your radius closely to where you live and just kind of like look for dates or people around who maybe their plans flaked on them or something. It'll be easy to find a date that day.
Oh, that's cool. So you're talking almost like an Insta date. So it's Saturday night. You might be on there, see if anybody's plans fell through, and then maybe you can go on a date pretty much right away.
Yep, exactly.
Cool. So we've been talking all about conversation, setting up a good profile. As a guy, how do you know if you're doing well? How many matches should an average looking guy be getting, assuming that he did a good job with his profile?
It's really subjective, and it depends on how many swipes you do and how many swipes you're allowed to have that day. So that number is kind of hard to predict. But I think that, and it also kind of vary based on how many people are in your town too. Because if you're in the middle of a big city, you're going to get a lot more matches than if you're in a small town.
So let's go with big city. Let's go with Chicago, Toronto, LA, New York. Say you're in a big cosmopolitan city.
Right. I think, if you get 50% or more, that you're doing good.
Okay. That sounds really high to me, 50% for a guy. I mean, I know there's some girls that will get matched with almost every swipe, but I didn't think for guys it would be that high.
Well, it depends on, it's hard for me to tell what level of attractiveness you're talking about. Even if you're getting 30 to 50%, if you're able to line up a couple dates a week, you're doing good.
Okay.
Cool. I think that's a good way to measure it. I wouldn't look at the number of matches. I mean, you can look at the number of matches because that gives you more options. But as long as you're going on dates with women that you're attracted to a few times a week, try not to get too caught up with the number of matches. As long as it's serving the function of, getting you out there and meeting hot women.
Okay, that's actually a good answer. So if you're going on a couple of dates a week, you're doing all right. And I know that was a really hard question to answer, so I think we got a solid answer out of that. Here's a pet peeve for, probably most guys involved in online dating. Girls are very, very, very clever with their pictures. And some girls are really good looking, but some girls can be pretty deceiving. I mean, there are angles that make them look 40 pounds lighter than they actually are. And so how does a guy, I guess, figure it out? Are there ways that a guy can figure out if the girl really looks how she appears to look in her pictures before going out and meeting her in person?
Right. No, I know. Guys' number one complaint is getting catfished. Like, that's all you hear is like women not looking like their pictures. So it's definitely hard when women are so good at taking pictures of themselves and we know like exactly how to cover our flaws based on millions of pictures that have been taken. So I think something to look out for, first of all, this is very obvious. If they don't have any full body pictures or pictures that show at least kind of their waist up, they're probably hiding something. If they're using MySpace angles, basically the angle, where it's really high up and going down, those are that's an angle that makes you look really thin.
Slimmer, yeah.
Yeah, so you'll see a lot of, if it's a bigger girl, she's probably just showing her face or maybe just her face and boobs, but it's from a high angle.
Right.
If that's the only angle that'll look good, that won't show that you're overweight. So that's something to look out for. And then a lot of pictures with sunglasses or just having their face kind of blocked. No pictures where they're smiling could mean that they have messed up teeth. Not having that many pictures in general, like only one or two, could mean that they're hiding something. So just look for all of those clues. And I think that if you're not seeing enough, it's okay to ask for their Instagram or their Facebook, or use some like online stalking tactics to try and track them down online, which I have a whole blog about that on my website. Just there's so many ways to stalk people online and find pictures. So I say just resort to that.
You know what? That's actually cool. I'm glad you mentioned that it's okay to ask them for the Facebook or Instagram, because I always wondered about that. On the one hand, you kind of want to be a decent guy. You don't want to seem superficial, but at the end of the day, it's what you care about. And so I personally don't think you need to dance around the issue. If you want to know, you want to know, right?
Right. But then at the same time, so I've had guys back in my single days, I have every picture that you would want, all 6 pictures. I have full body pictures, like from every angle, smiling. And guys will still ask for more pictures, or they'll ask for selfies. And that's it. I think all women find it offensive when you ask them for pictures. Not really offensive, but it's like, it's either that you don't trust the pictures that you're seeing of them, which is a bad way to kind of start it off, or you are just trying to initiate them to send sexy pics for some reason.
Well, yeah. And if a guy's specifically asking you for selfies, that's where my mind would go. That's probably what he's looking for. He's probably looking for some naked pictures or something like that.
Right. So yeah, just be really careful about how you ask. If you think you have enough pictures to get a good idea, just take the risk and go on the date. Worst case, if you have a bad feeling about it, like a really bad feeling, just be honest and tell her you've had it happen before. You just want to double check. But if you use your judgment, you just don't want to kind of start it on the wrong foot.
And you're saying it's cool to be honest about it. It's like, look, I've been on Tinder for a while. I've gone out with girls that look nothing like their picture, and I'm a little bit on guard. Hope you don't mind. I think
it'll be better or easier for you to get away with that if she's one of these girls that doesn't have a lot of pictures, like maybe only has 1 or 2 pictures, or has her face covered.
So it's got to be justified, is what you're saying.
Exactly. You can't just be like, oh, I don't trust you. Like, for example, I have a client that's a bit older. She's 40, but she looks like she's 30, and she's super hot. So everybody's always asking her for more pictures because they don't believe that. They think they're old pictures of her because it says that she's 40, but she looks 30. And she gets super offended by that, or not offended, but just turned off. And she doesn't ever go out with anybody who asks her for more pictures. So just be careful.
That's really good advice. Okay. And you mentioned that there are some additional stalking tips that you had.
Yeah, you can actually take pictures and screenshot them and throw them into the Google reverse image search, which is, if you just type in google.com, you can go to the image search function. And that will pull up other pictures of them online. If they have that picture online anywhere, you can kind of track them down that way. There's a ton. You could just search if you actually get their phone number, you can put their phone number into Facebook search or their email address. And not that you would ask for their email, but their phone number will usually pull up their profile. So there are a lot of clever ways to track them down. Feel free to go to my website and get the whole entire, I think there's 10 tips on there.
Yeah, you actually have an article on there and I've read it. So I'll put the link to that article in the show notes. I think there's some great tips in there.
Okay, great.
So I think we have a very, very unique opportunity because we're talking Tinder, but you're also in a position to offer it from a woman's perspective. And you've already done that to a certain extent. And I'd like to go deeper down that particular rabbit hole. So let's start with a general question. What's the Tinder experience like for women that guys might not know?
I don't know if they know this or not, but it really is exhausting for women. It's exciting, and we love the attention and the excitement of going on dates with new guys and all of that. But it is another job. It's a second job, and it's really overwhelming, especially because women get so many matches. And we have to weed out a lot of BS and harassment from guys. So it takes a lot of kind of weeding out. That's kind of the hard part. So I guess for guys, it's hard for them to get the matches and get the women's phone numbers and closing the dates. And for women, it's just weeding out tons and tons of guys who just aren't, they're just not date material.
Yeah, from a male perspective, I imagine most guys listening to that and just thinking, man, I wish I had that problem. But putting myself into a woman's shoes, it sounds like it could become a real chore, right? Something that should theoretically be fun just becomes this really tedious process of weeding people out, especially if you're not getting good matches. If the guys you're being matched with are jerks or don't know how to talk, then I can see it becoming a drag real quick.
Right, especially if we're looking for a relationship, or not necessarily looking for a relationship, but that's kind of like our end thing that we would like to come out of dates, obviously, is to find someone that we want to, connect with and be with for a long time. So it's frustrating to come across all the people who are just looking for hookups, because it's kind of, they can disguise their, like, what their intentions are, or they'll cancel on you at the last minute. And so there's a lot of BS to deal with.
Right. This leads me into my next question. This is based on a conversation I actually had with someone I met on Tinder. And we were talking about the exact same thing that you and I are talking about now. And she goes to me, you get so many matches that I just started viewing people I meet on Tinder as disposable. And ever since she said that, I've always wondered, how common is that sentiment? Because when she said that, that was a massive turnoff to me. And I actually didn't end up going out with her. I just didn't want to after hearing that. But I also wonder, was this just her, or is this a real common sentiment? Because I can see how it would be, given the fact that an average looking woman probably does get a ton of matches.
Right. I don't like that word disposable. It sounds a bit cold to me. And, I would have done the exact same thing as you and not go out with her after hearing that. But I think what she meant, and maybe she wasn't able to communicate that in a nice way, was just that there's always another date around the corner. So, like, there's plenty of fish in the sea, so, and a lot of women do share that feeling. And what it really means in a more positive way is that we don't have to put up with guys who are treating us poorly, or if they're boring, or if they don't call us again. We don't have to get upset and wait for that guy to call us back. We can just move on to the next one, and that's kind of like the way that I think most women see it.
Yeah, I think that's a healthy perspective. To be honest, I think that's how men should think as well.
Right. And not everyone is disposable. It's really hard for women to find a good guy, a guy that they actually want to date. And so, when they do come across that guy, that person's not going to be disposable. They're going to still, wait by the phone or whatever.
And we start talking about, is Tinder a hookup app? How many women are looking for hookups? I found a lot of profiles that women have up explicitly say that they are not there for a hookup. I will not hook up with you in whatever shape or form. They say that very, very bluntly. And so in my experience, sometimes they mean it and sometimes they don't. And so how would you recommend a guy interpret that? So if a guy is looking for a hookup and he comes across somebody that's got that in their profile, maybe they match and have a good conversation, should he just disregard it and proceed with what he wants? Or should he just take it at face value and be like, well, she's not looking for what I'm looking for?
Right. I think there's like a key word. Everybody talks about looking for a hookup, not looking for a hookup. The key word is, are you only looking for a hookup? Like, that's the main difference, because everybody is looking for a hookup unless you're celibate. Men and women both want to have sex. It's just biology, you know what I mean? So the difference is, some people only want to have sex and they're not looking to even see the person again. They're just looking for a one-night stand. And then some people are maybe going to hook up with you if they're, attracted to you, but they're not going to say that right out the gate.
Yeah, and especially for a woman, there's this whole concept of protecting your reputation. And so often we see our Facebook friends on Tinder and they see what we have to say. And so I imagine that plays a pretty big factor too, right?
So I think that girls, they put this, the words, they're not looking for a hookup, in the profile so that they can kind of weed out the guys who are players and who are getting around. Because even if a girl does want to hook up with a guy, she doesn't want to hook up with a guy who's hooking up with everybody else. So it's kind of a way to guard against STDs, if you look at it in a way too. Why would you put on your profile that you're looking for a hookup, find someone who's also looking for a hookup, knowing that they both probably have been hooking up with, 10 other people that week?
Again, that strikes me as being interesting, because it's kind of like what we touched on before, is that in real life, something like that might, it depends on context, of course, but something like that might actually work in the guy's favor, where a girl perceives him as a potential player that could actually make him attractive. Now, when I say player, I don't mean like a really manipulative guy or a guy who deceives women, but rather a guy who's just popular with women, maybe happens to have a lot of sex. So it's interesting that you say in this environment, it's different. But then I'm thinking out loud here, and in a way it makes sense because, I mean, you're total strangers on Tinder, and so it's not a rich form of communication. You just get so much more information when you're seeing a person in the flesh in real life. So maybe that's a factor.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. And I think guys shouldn't read too much into the whole, if a guy is looking for a hookup and maybe something more, I don't think that they should avoid the girls who say they're not looking for a hookup, because there's still a chance that you could hook up that night. As long as you're open to the idea of it becoming something more, I think that's totally fair game. But if you know absolutely for sure that you don't want anything more, I don't think it's fair to go out with the girl who says that on her profile. You should just swipe left, or you should tell her, like, I know you're not looking for a hookup, but like, I am. Do you want to hook up? I don't know. Just be honest, you know what I mean? Because she's blatantly saying what she's not looking for. So
you respond by blatantly saying what you are looking for.
If you want to take a chance and do that, or the better way to do it is just avoid her and find a girl who doesn't say that on her profile. Cool.
This is actually based on one of your articles that I read, and you mentioned flakes, and that in this whole world of online dating, they're becoming a lot more common. I'm curious, how common are they? Listening to dating advice, I come across a lot of guys talking about girls flaking and not showing up, and that always startles me because I'm like, where the hell do you find women that make plans and just don't show up? And so I'm curious, how common is this with Tinder? Does that happen a lot, or?
Yes, it does. It's really common. I think the reason for it is that because, we're on Tinder, we're scheduling all these dates, and there's only so many open nights in the week or so many time slots. And so people tend to overschedule, and then they, overbook themselves and something comes up, and now they have to shuffle, or they have to cancel maybe they'll even cancel the one date that is their least favorite and move the one that they actually wanted to go out with to the open slot, kind of rearrange it, and you get knocked out. Okay. It's kind of like musical chairs or whatever. So, that happens a lot. And there's also people who just can't probably cancel because they just want to go out with somebody else and they found someone better. It's very rude. I hate it. But I'm not going to lie. I mean, I have, and I know my friends have had to cancel dates. And sometimes you're just exhausted. You have a long day at work and you just are like, I know that I can't go out. I'm not going to bring my best self to the table if I go out tonight like this.
Well, and you know what? In my opinion, that's cool if you cancel a date for, I don't care what the reason is. If you cancel it, you cancel it. That's fine. But just plain not showing up and not communicate, which to me is how I interpreted what you were talking about in the article. That's where I'm a little bit shocked.
Right. I mean, and there are ways around it. So, people are rude, and I guess they get the sense of like, they're not going to see you again. So it's kind of that whole thing where you're behind a curtain in a way. And maybe that's why they think they can get away with not telling you until the last minute. But to avoid that, I like to tell my clients to use, sometimes it's the 4 C's, but I'll just keep it to 3 C's right now. The first C is confirmation. So you want to confirm the date details as soon as possible with them. So kind of set concrete details for the date right away and take the lead. Women love that anyway. And then you want to confirm again the day before the date. Just be like, hey, we're still on for tomorrow. That kind of gives them a chance. If they were thinking of canceling, they're probably going to do it then rather than wait. And that gives you 24 hours to make new plans.
Gotcha.
But then also if you check in, they might be like, oh, I was thinking about canceling, but now they checked in and all right, I'll just go kind of thing.
Okay. So it could actually revive the whole situation.
Yeah, exactly. It's just good to make sure you're on the same page. And then the second one is convenience. I say make sure the plan is convenient for your date. It's usually good to meet halfway and things like that if you're in 2 different parts of the city or whatever. But you just want to make sure the date isn't inconvenient for your date. So if they're all the way across town and it's right after work, either build in like an extra 30 minutes time so they have time to get there, or double check with them that time and place is convenient for them, because that's usually the number one reason for canceling a date is just, it's too far in rush hour traffic,
Gotcha.
something comes up and it just, the closer it is to them, like I'll have guys a lot of times, or I used to have them try to come to my area And that's probably just to be nice and to, keep me from canceling. It might have also been because they wanted to be near my house in case things went well. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, it's always nice for a woman when it's not super out of the way.
That's funny because a lot of guys will actually set up a date in their neighborhood. So like as close as possible to their place. Again, in case it goes well.
Right. And I mean, all good if you actually make it to the date, but there's a half a chance, 50% chance that if it's too far away, she's just not going to go at all.
Got you.
And girls know when guys are doing that too, that we can tell.
Oh, yeah?
Like when a guy will like suggest to pick us up or blah, 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 like, and when they suggest like wine at their place or something like that, like all of the tactics, we get those a lot. I mean, we can't always tell, but for the most part, make sure you're not obvious about those things. That's a turn off too. And then, the final C is the cutoff time. It's helpful to just set an end time to the date in advance. So you can say, hey, I'm free from 7 to 9. I have to I have an early presentation or whatever. Or you don't even have to give an excuse. Just say I'm free from 7 to 9. Let's get together. And that not only does that make you look, like you have stuff going on, and kind of it's like a scarcity tactic in a way where it makes you look valuable because you're slotting that person in, but it's also good for them to know that there's an end time. Like the date isn't going to drag on all night long.
Right. And it's a total out for the guy too. If he's just not feeling it, then he set that cutoff time and at least he knows that he can salvage part of his day or night whenever it's happening.
Right. Absolutely.
Cool. So just one final question on this whole topic of Tinder. I know that Tinder's got a ton of functionality. Some of it is kosher with Tinder policy. Some of it is not, but you can get away with it anyway. So I don't want to make this like a really long techie conversation, but is there any valuable functionality that is available in Tinder that guys might not know about and could really benefit from using?
Well, I think Tinder Plus, I don't know. It kind of depends on what your needs are, because the 3 features that you can get with the Pro version are Passport. Passport is what allows you to search a specific location on a map that you're not necessarily nearby. So if you travel a lot, or if you are maybe moving to a new city, or if there's a certain part of town that you're trying to meet someone in, like let's say you live out in the suburbs, but you just want to meet someone who lives in the city because you're out there all the time. It's a really good thing to use. But the bad part is, unfortunately, that it shows them on, there's a little airplane symbol and it'll say swiping from such and such a place. And so they know that you're not actually there.
Okay. So going back to the whole conversation about hookups, that's how it can be perceived very easily.
Exactly. But it still might be worth it to do it. Like one of my clients goes back and forth to Ojai all the time. And she's just like, God, I wish I could just set up some dates for when I'm in Ojai. And I'm like, just pay for it. Just chalk it up and pay for it. So, yeah. And then there's Rewind, which really all it is you can go back one. If you accidentally swipe someone, you can still get them back. I mean, that's for guys who are just swiping too fast. So I would say just slow down your swiping. Yeah, slow your roll.
Yeah, I'm notorious for that.
I mean, in the worst case, if they're gone, but there's more to come, you know what I mean? It's not the end. But if you accidentally swipe someone, that's good marketing on their part, because if you accidentally swipe someone left that you think could have been your soulmate, you can just pay and get that person back.
I do that all the time, and I do it in both directions. Sometimes I'm swiping right really fast, and then I realize I just swiped on a friend or something. I'm like, ah.
They say that it depends on what hand you are, like if you're right-handed or left-handed. I can't remember the exact statistics, but people were more likely to swipe right more if you're right-handed or I don't know. I can't give you the numbers, but it definitely affects it.
Ah, interesting. So one particular strategy might be just use your other hand if you're prone to making one particular directional error all the time.
Exactly. Yes. Just be more conscious. But then, and I guess the third feature, the unlimited swiping, is just they've implemented a new thing where they cut off the number of swipes you have, and it's based on an algorithm that it's like a smart algorithm that kind of limits the number every 12 hours, but it doesn't tell you exactly a number of how many. So that's kind of up to you. If you're running out a lot, then go for it. But I think the algorithm kind of pays attention to if you're just mechanically swiping right over and over again, then and you're not really like looking at profiles or anything. I think that has something to do with it. So maybe just don't be so mechanical about and don't swipe right to everyone.
Okay. Everything you've just described is Tinder Plus, right? So this is the paid premium version of Tinder, just so we're clear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other things that you think guys need to know about that are functions in Tinder? I know there's hacks and all sorts of stuff, but something that you feel guys should really know, or is this pretty much it?
I think that within Tinder, I'm not sure, but there are hacks like, well, first of all, I should mention the Flame app, which you can try it or not. Basically, it's a new app. It's not really proven. I mean, it's not really like approved by Tinder, so it could come down at any minute. But it lets you match with people who have already liked you kind of instantly. So it shows you everyone who's already liked you, and you can
just go yes, 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 no, yes, yes, yes. Okay.
Totally. But the problem with it is it takes a few days to kick in, and in the meantime, it tells you you're not supposed to swipe it on Tinder at all. Oh. So yeah, it's kind of lame. I went to go try it out because I was like, I'm going to try this out and like see how it works. And then I was like, no, that's lame. I don't really want to wait 2 days of nothing. So it's just up to you if you want to give it a shot or not. But Tinder actually takes the people who liked you and moves them to the top. Usually, like,
so you're getting that anyway.
Yeah, you're eventually going to come across all the people. So unless you're on a really specific time crunch, like you want to meet somebody that Friday night and it's already 7 p.m., then it's really not going to be that big of a difference.
Okay, gotcha. So you're saying this is not approved by Tinder. I imagine the app could go down anytime, but is there any risk to the user getting banned from Tinder, or is Tinder not going to go after the little guy?
No, I don't think that the user has anything to worry about.
Okay. Cool. Kristi, this has been a ton of value. Thank you so much for giving me all the extra time to go through this. To wrap up, can you tell the guys where they can learn more about you and get in touch with you and all that good stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is KristiAllain.com. That's my name. It's just spelled KristiAllain.com. And that has dating tips and all kinds of free stuff. I have a free date ideas handbook. So that has like over 100 date ideas that you guys can get for free. I think the link is going to be in the show notes. And then I think I have a first date cheat sheet that you can also get from my site for free. And then I have my book is only 99 cents on Amazon. And you can follow me on Twitter at Kristi Lee Allain, my middle name Lee. So yeah, that's everything. And then one little tidbit, if you guys want to check it out, my boyfriend Blake Jameson wrote this amazing book called Tinder Hacks, and the link is also in the show notes. So that just goes from start to finish, kind of like we did, but way more in depth, and gives you all the different hacks and ideas and specific messages that you can use on Tinder to get more matches.
Right. And I guess what's cool about Blake's book, aside from the fact that he obviously knows a thing or two about dating, he's dating you.
Right.
But he's also, is it a digital marketer by trade?
Yeah, he is.
So this stuff is right up his alley.
Yeah, definitely. Like, he's really good at all that. He takes a really data-driven approach to everything. And so he applied that to Tinder, and he wrote about it on Medium, and it got picked up by Adweek, and he was just recently in the Red Bull magazine, featured in there. So it just kind of went viral. So then he was like, oh, I guess I have to write a book about it, So it's a good book. Pick it up.
Awesome. So the book, everything, all the links we talked about, the article that I brought up, all of that will be in the show notes for guys to access on mensdatingmastery.com. Kristi, thanks again. Had a blast.
Cool. Thank you. This has been so great.
That is it for this interview, guys. Don't forget that you can get Frank Kermit's 3 products, The Emotional Needs of Women ebook, The Art of Charisma from Creepy to Charisma 3-set audio program, and the Pimping Your Pad 5-set audio program by visiting the show notes for episodes 14, 15, or 16, all of which can be found on the podcast page at mensdatingmastery.com. Once you've found the show notes, click on the link under the title Free Giveaway at the top of the page to get the products. Remember that these products represent $270 in value, and therefore will be available only until September 16th of 2015. So you only have a limited time to get them for free. After that, you'll have to shell out some money just like everybody else. Thanks for listening, and until next time.
Thank you for listening to Men's Dating Mastery, a podcast dedicated to improving the lives of men and the women around them.